log
Recording in
via the app
progress.
on my phone rather than just clicking the button or the link. And then it told me that it was waiting for the host to start the meeting room.
Uh-huh.
Hey guys,
Here-
I'm really sorry about that. I don't really know what happened there.
No worries.
I'm glad we got it going. Well, let me get us started. If I'm not too early, a little early, but we've been live for a few minutes. So I'll go ahead and get started. Today's meeting topic is on identifying triggers. Sorry about the dog. Identifying triggers, and avoiding triggers and enduring them when you have to face them.
Yeah. Your audio is kind of breaking up, buddy.
It is.
Is there a dog at your place?
Yeah, there's a dog over here. I'm sorry.
Okay, I was wondering what that noise was. No, hey, we're a pet-friendly group.
Let's see if I can quiet her down.
You just kind of sound robot a little bit.
How about now? Is it okay?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. Yeah, identifying triggers. They come up. They cause cravings. They stir us towards feeding our addiction instead of abstaining from our substance of choice or whatever our addiction may be.
Something I read is a good way to classify triggers as internal and external. So like external would be running into a buddy that you used to use with. Internal would be like if you're feeling down or sad that day and you're like, I just need something to, like I know some drugs would take me out of this mood. Like, so I thought that was a good place to start, at least being able to recognize, is this an internal trigger or an external trigger?
Well, and some of them, I've seen it described as having mental, physical, and emotional triggers.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much the same thing, or sometimes it's a combination of the two. You could have something that happened that's an external trigger, but it also brings up secondary internal triggers.
Yeah, they kind of combine against you. Yeah, like bumping into an ex that you used to use with, then you're like the drug thing, and then you're sad. Downward spiral from there.
We used to have so much fun when we were using together, and it just felt perfect.
Yeah. So I think everybody that suffers from addiction, has dozens and dozens of triggers. I was kind of wondering if, is it a trigger just to even talk about triggers and identify your triggers? It's kind of like a slippery slope, right? Like,
yes, it is. It is.
But I need to have something, but I need to have something before I can talk about my feelings.
Yeah. So, another thing about triggers, and it kind of ties in with what I just mentioned, like even talking about triggers being a trigger, the act of enduring them. Every time that you are triggered, just to put it easily, and you tolerate and you endure and you make it through to the other side, you're essentially practicing this overall skill of trigger mitigation, making our way through this hard existence.
Trigger mitigation. That's a really good word usage. I like that. Because sometimes you can avoid them. Sometimes they're a person and you can just not respond to the text and let it slide. Sometimes they're unavoidable, like most everybody gets a paycheck or some sort of income. Hopefully they have that going on in their life. And when you receive that money, or maybe you decide to spend some of that money, that can be a trigger. Oh, I got, this much money to spend and I only have this much needs. I've got extra money, and that can that for me in the past has been a trigger. I like to spend my money on something wholesome so that I'm not tempted to spend it on something unwholesome.
Well,
Like
I would say,
buying spaceships in Nintendo World.
Digital
well,
items,
and, you
yeah.
know,
I'm just
and you know,
kidding.
my mother to a certain extent has a shopping addiction. There was a scenario just a couple of years ago where she broke her leg in 4 places, and my sister
Oh.
had to have me come over and help clean the place up while she was out at rehab. And you know, and I get there, and I wouldn't necessarily call her a hoarder, but you know, you've seen pictures of a hoarder's place where there's just, you know, there's a pathway to the bathroom, and there's a pathway over to the recliner, and you know, and a pathway to the door, and everything else is just full of stuff. And
Yeah.
hers was like that, but we're not talking like stacks of newspapers from the 1950s here. It was Amazon boxes that had never been opened after they were delivered.
Dude,
And
Ugh.
that's
so I
an
know,
addiction.
yeah. And well, and a lot of it was just because, you know, after her husband passed away, you know, she got lonely, and it was just something for her to do that gave her a little of that dopamine release.
Mhm.
And I know for a fact that, you know, after she got her, you know, retirement checks at the beginning of the month, i- that would be when the spending was the worst.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But when she started to run out of money, then of course it just went onto the credit card.
Yeah.
Oh, ouch.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like I kind of experience that form of addiction as well. Not to that extent, but you know, I think everybody loves to order something, get the package, open that package up, and you're like, yes. And then right after that, you're like, I gotta order another package. You know, it's like I don't
Not
know what it
me.
is. Yeah. Uh,
The only reason I think about it, like, you know, it's like, okay, I can't find what I want, and I don't want to drive around all over town. It's easier for me to order Amazon, and then I get a box for the cat to play with.
yeah, you see
Yeah.
my box over there? Cat loves that box. What's that all about? Likes it
They
that
have an
way, likes
addiction.
it
They have
upside down.
addiction to cardboard boxes.
For real.
Mhm.
You know, so I think kind of an important thing to note, and we use that just that shopping addiction that we're talking about is that uh, I acknowledge that I'm just gonna want to buy that so that I have the thing coming, so that eventually I can open the thing present like Christmas, you know, and get that little bit of dopamine rush, and then right afterwards I'm gonna be like, man, I spent $40 on that thing. It's just sitting over there. It's a drone that I never take out of the fucking zip case, you know. Um, and so I just kind of like acknowledge that whenever I have the temptation to buy something stupid or get on that spree, and then the same thing carries over to other addictions. You kind of have to process it where you look at like, okay, I have this trigger, it's making me want to have a beer, and then go through the entire process of that. Well, okay, I'm gonna have that beer, and then later I'm gonna have a lot more beers. I'm gonna blow a bunch of money. I'm gonna start feeling like shit again, and then I'm gonna have to go through a much more difficult recovery process. So,
Well,
yeah,
well, I think in you know, describing it as a recovery process, you know, there may be times at the beginning of a journey to sobriety where someone has to avoid situations where they're around it at all.
yeah,
Um, you know, and you know, and then just like, you know, you guys going to see Sting, you know, you eventually get to a point where yes, you can be around it, you can't have it, but the trigger isn't quite as strong if you're just watching other people do it. Um,
yeah,
going into the holiday season, um, you know, a lot of things are a lot of family events are almost unavoidable. But depending on your relationship with the family, a lot of those can be triggering.
yeah.
You know, that's just what you need is the obnoxious uncle spouting off about politics that you don't agree with at the end of the table. Because at that point, you're like, somebody pass me the wine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, so, you know, I have had, you know, personal events where, you know, I found out that a certain somebody was going to be there and either made plans to not go at all or to cut my stay very short.
Yeah. And that's kind of like a reaction plan for these situations, a recovery plan. You know, there can be a lot of parts that make up your own personal recovery plan. You know, obviously one of those is calling your sponsor, calling a friend, one of your sober buddies or whatever. Another easy one is just simple breathing exercise. Take a breath in, hold it for a second or two, and then blow out longer than you inhaled for, you know, and that's just the easiest, most basic version of that. But have you a breathing routine, it will have an impact on you. It's just 100% true. It's a scientific fact. They've proven this shit. It
Mm-hmm.
changes what part of your shit you're in, you know.
You know, breathing exercises are a deep part of meditation. If you do that to help center yourself.
Yeah. I do those for my weird reaction that I have to cold water. I do those, and they help a lot for that. I'm not as good at doing them for my triggers related to drugs and alcohol. For those, it seems like I sort of just slowly process and endure it, you know, until it goes away. I use distractions all the time. Um, you know, not just whenever I have a trigger, but I'm distracted before a trigger even comes around, you know. If I'm going into a situation that I know there are going to be triggers, like for example, going into camping situations where everyone else is going to be drinking and doing drugs, uh, you know, I have to prep myself ahead of time. I have to make sure that I have my alternate beverages, have my cigarettes and coffee, right? Uh, do everything that I can to make those triggers be less impactful on me, so that I can just acknowledge that yes, I've been triggered because guy over there is having a beer right now, and man, I used to like camping with beer, you know. Process that, absorb it, get my Gatorade, acknowledge that I'm hydrating myself and that I'm doing good things for my body, distract myself with something else, like making the campfire, playing with that for an hour or two, you know, and then eventually moving on.
Your cravings will pass. They will eventually pass, and you'll overcome the craving that's bothering you so much.
Well, I think also it's important, you know, once you recognize what your triggers are, to make sure that you surround yourself with people who will try to avoid triggering those cravings in you. You know, so that's, you know, especially if it comes to hard drugs, you know, you're probably not going to be able to go to a party where everybody's high.
Right.
Yeah.
If the temptation's going to be that great, you have the option of not going, staying home. If that keeps you
Well,
safer, I would do that over.
well, and there's a difference of a situation, you know, if you're, you know, if you're with, you know, some friends and they still party, depending on what their choice, the drug of choice is, you know, you know, are they doing it to a point where it's going to reduce their self-control and it's going to be like in your face the whole night? Or are they being a little discreet about it, whatever it is that they're doing, so that they can be respectful about what you're going through?
Yeah. And then always be ready to excuse yourself from a situation like that. You know, running into a person that used to be your using buddy, you know, you might have to just be like, all right, yeah, I'll see you later. Can't add that to my world right now.
Well, and it could be, or it could just be something as simple as, you know, hey, I know you've got stuff around your place. Let's have dinner at my place where there's, and don't bring any with you.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good proactive approach. Hey, Amber, looking
Hello.
lovely today.
I didn't want to interrupt you guys.
Oh,
Yeah.
Our Lady of the Evening is here, and I meant that in the nicest way.
I take it either way. Thank you. At least for me, Scott.
Oh.
Now, John, don't get any ideas.
I've had them for many years. No kidding.
Oh dear. Okay. So anyway, hello. So we're talking about when we find ourselves in those situations where people are using.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just ran into a situation with that last night, interestingly enough, with my husband while I was making dinner. He had cracked open a beer behind me, and I was like, I could really go for a glass of wine right now because we had so many things going on that day, and I just wanted to unwind. And he even asked me if I wanted him to go to the liquor store and get a bottle of wine for me, and I said no. But to me, it was more just acknowledging that I was having that craving and finding the strength within myself to say, no, I don't need that. That's not good for me.
Yeah.
Very
And
good.
then, another part is, I think we're more susceptible to our triggers, when we're not doing the core things that make a human feel good, the nutrition, the hydration, the sleep, the exercise, all that kind of stuff. I mean, I always like to throw that in there, because if you build a good foundation for yourself with all of those, your spirituality included, um, those triggers will have less of a chance of impacting you, of penetrating your defenses, in a way.
Yeah, I agree with that. If you're more balanced, even a good
Medication,
balance.
yeah,
Yeah.
all that stuff. Um,
I
and
take a
then,
litany of drugs. Surprise.
yeah, I'm on that 22 pill a day regimen.
Okay, I don't take quite that many.
Well, a good 8 of those are aspirin or Tylenol.
uh, I've taken the most pills that I've ever taken since I got my surgery, and they had wrote me a prescription for some opiates, and I just told them to keep the prescription because I have never been one that likes that feeling inside my head of just the medication messing with me.
Mm-hmm.
But I have had that in some of the drugs that I've gotten from my psychiatrist because, of course, that's messing with your head too.
Yeah, those opioids are, I like them too much. I'm like, can I have surgery, please? Come on, doc.
Well, see, and I tend to take after my mother to a certain extent because I don't even like taking Tylenol or ibuprofen. Um, but like she went through. It's been several years ago, and she went through um, both double knee one year and then double hip replacement another year, and she would barely take the stuff when you could tell how in how much pain she was. And she's like, I just don't like it. And I'm like, you go ahead and take half one then. Take something.
Mm-hmm.
Because your body's telling you that you're hurting.
Yeah.
Medication's kind of a tough or a touchy subject. I advise everybody to go by their doctor's orders. But I admit to you guys in the internet that sometimes I'll try to cut back against my we're on my own basically without discussing with the doctor. And I like this feeling that if I can get down to one and it meets my needs, and I don't feel the need to take anymore to just take
Yeah.
one. Maybe one is enough, and I don't even need a second one all day.
Yeah, it's hard to do. I've tried as well, and usually I end up just going right back to it, maybe one day.
Yeah.
But definitely don't rush that.
Well, I know
Doctor's
that
orders.
a couple of years ago when I was going through our separation and then our divorce, I was getting to a point where I was having trouble sleeping, and um, my doctor wanted to prescribe me with something that I have had before and know that I am prone to use too much of it.
Mm.
And so I told her absolutely not. Is there another alternative? I've had a bad experience with that particular one. And she found me something else, and she's like, okay, well, we're going to start you out at 10 milligrams, and then in 2 weeks you need to go up to 20. I'm like, can I start at 5 and then maybe go to 10? And just until I see how I feel about it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and she was fine with that, and it happened to work pretty well. And after everything was all said and finalized and all of my personal stress went away, I just looked at it and said, I'm already taking, a Benadryl and an antacid every night before I go to bed. I don't really want to take a handful of pills every day, so we're going to go ahead and cut this one out and see how my sleeping schedule goes.
Very good.
How did it go?
Most nights I'm actually now, of course, men of a certain age, we have to get up at least once in the middle of the night. There's that tiny room that's, attached, just down the hall that, calls to you in the middle of the night. But I'm not waking up like every 1 to 2 hours and having trouble going back to sleep.
That was Colleen that just called on the hotline.
Really?
Yeah.
Was he saying he was having a hard time connecting also?
I don't think so. Yeah, no, I told him that we're over here and he should hop in. I think he will.
Okay.
I don't know. It was hard for me to do both things at once, but I noticed that it was a hotline number, so I wanted to answer it. Sorry if I interrupted, but yeah, hopefully he'll pop in here in a minute.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Awesome. We'll see if he comes in. I like to talk about enduring triggers, because we talked about how some are just unavoidable. You're gonna face them. Maybe you're trying to quit smoking and you're really successful, but you see somebody at the grocery store. Yeah, I'm talking about you, really. You see somebody out in the parking lot and they're just puffing away on a cigarette, and it kind of triggers you to maybe buy a pack, and you think about it for a second. But how do you endure those?
I think for me, and I know that this is not going to be for everybody, the smell I find absolutely disgusting. Like when it's on other people, when it's on their clothes and stuff like that. And so I can have somebody, like I'm taking this girl to and from work right now, and she smokes, and every time that she gets into my truck now, I can smell the cigarette smoke, and I'm like, oh, I smelled like that. Like I made other people smell that. No. That to me, that's very similar to BO. It's just like, you got to take some care of yourself.
It's a sort of, it's kind of like BO, yeah.
I find that kind of interesting, because when people that I work with find out for the first time that I smoke, they're like, I couldn't smell it. And it's like, well, that's because as soon as I'm done smoking, my next stop is the bathroom to wash my hands.
Yeah.
And I said, and I typically keep either a cologne or I usually do like little essential oils to help relax me through the day anyway, but those tend to help get rid of the smell as well. I said, I don't like the way it smells.
I used to not only go to the bathroom and wash my hands, but I always had a bottle of perfume. First off in my vehicle, but secondly in my purse, and just.
And I always have a little travel size bottle of Listerine.
Yep. I'm with you.
I don't do any of that stuff, man. I walk around reeking.
Yes, James, I can smell you from the West Coast.
Right. I do have some beard oil in it, but it's not doing it. It's not covering it.
Scott, you have no idea what it's like here in the Midwest, and I don't even live beside him.
So, talking about smells being a trigger, or Amber, in your case, an anti-trigger. I've had to, just because my acid reflux has gotten so bad, I've had to cut almost all of the coffee out of me completely. And I ran to the grocery store for a couple of things this morning, before this meeting. And what's the first thing that you walk past in the grocery store? It's Starbucks.
Oh.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting here going, oh God, a latte would go down really well right now, but I know exactly how much pain I'm going to be in afterwards.
Oh yeah.
So, And I think we're all addicted to caffeine. I mean, I do still have a little every morning, but like this morning, I literally had 1.5 ounces.
Yeah, I'm a pot a day.
I used to be, I used to do half a pot of drip in the morning before leaving for work. I would get a quad latte while waiting for the bus. When I got off the bus, I would get another quad latte. I would drink drip all day at work, except at lunch, I would go get another quad.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wow.
That's expensive.
Yeah, but
That's
it
$39
definitely,
in coffee right there.
it was definitely a little pricey. Kept me hyped up all day long.
Good. Yeah, you're ready to go.
But at this point of, after years of doing that, I started to have heartburn and acid reflux issues, and that's
That's your
that's
anti-trigger. Yeah.
that is one of those things. It's like I know exactly how bad I'm going. If you drink beer all night long, you're going to feel like crap the next morning. Um, you know, so it's similar in that I'm going to feel bad afterwards. It's just I'm going to feel bad within the next like 45 minutes.
Yeah. So speaking of the grocery store, that's one of my triggers that I have to endure often. You go in and every time you're going to see the alcohol aisle. Guaranteed, you're gonna like it's always a prominent feature in the stores.
I
And
forgot
so
about that in Arkansas.
huh?
I forgot about that there.
Oh yeah.
Because being in Kansas, we don't
Oh, they
have,
don't do that.
you can't get liquor in the grocery store.
Oh yeah, here in Washington, when I first moved up here, it was just beer and wine, and then they relaxed the
That's what they have here,
laws.
beer and wine. Yeah.
Now we've got full hard liquor.
Uh,
You have to ring a little bell for somebody to come, unlock the case and grab it for you. But it's the grocery store that I
yeah.
go to has an entire grocery store length aisle of nothing but hard liquor.
Oh well. Yeah.
Good
Well,
Lord.
see that's one of those that I see it in the store and I have to acknowledge it. I have to acknowledge that I have a problem with it, and then kind of realize that I'm not gonna buy it, and then kind of praise myself for making good decision. This is like the subtle things that are happening in that little trip into the grocery store, and then the success afterwards. Like, hey, yeah, another time I didn't buy any of that shit from the grocery store. Another day in the books. It's like every time you practice that, every time you encounter something and you overcome it, that's good practice.
That's
Anytime
really
that you don't buy any, you're another fifth of the way there. But
Well, I got two comments for you guys. One is for James, one is for Scott. But I'll start with James. As far as being able to take a look down a liquor aisle and go, no, I'm not going there, or I'm not stopping. Mine has been my local liquor store where I would always go to get my stuff. They had once told my first husband, Dave, in AA that you would know that you were reaching a certain point when you could drive past your favorite liquor store and not stop.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I've already gotten to that point to where it's like I don't even pay attention to it anymore. It's another building that's there. But Scott, I want to say thank you very much for bringing up the addiction to caffeine. Because while I didn't put my 2 cents in, I definitely am addicted to that. I have coffee in the morning and then soda for the day. So that's a really, really tough one to deal with. And I will say that I've gone cold turkey on caffeine every time that I found out that I was pregnant, which is twice times. But the withdrawals that you have are horrible. You get headaches, you get sweats, like your body is so conditioned to having that caffeine in your system that you can't function. And it is quitting drinking and quitting caffeine have probably been on par for me.
Well, we all start getting caffeine with our Coca-Cola or our Dr. Pepper when we're like, what, 4?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Maybe
seems like.
even, yeah. And so your body definitely gets used to that. And, you know, one of the things that I moved over as I was trying to cut down years ago, mostly because that $40 a day Starbucks habit,
Mhm.
was I moved over to hot tea.
Yeah.
And even if you drink, and I like hot tea anyway, so but if I'm having my my English breakfast or something like that, sure, there's still a little caffeine in there, but it's about half as much as in a cup of coffee. And then from there I moved over to um like herbal teas. And
Really?
I'm still
Scott,
drinking something hot.
Scott, have you ever tried the butterfly PT?
I've never even heard of that one.
Oh, we're gonna have to talk about that later. Anyway,
Okay. Yeah, I'm drinking. Most of mine is the Tazo line of teas,
mhm.
Those are good.
because they've got some stuff that have some really rich flavors, like chamomile. Yeah, chamomile doesn't do it for me. That's like the water that you poured out of your vase that your flowers were sitting in.
Yeah.
Uh, it does. That's exactly. I mean, that's exactly what it smells and it tastes like. But I do also drink green tea. Um, and but you can get a decaf version of it, and so I try to do that.
Stay away from the black tea.
I do keep some black tea in the house. It's English breakfast, but I don't have it very frequently because I still have to worry about it's still a little acidic on my stomach too.
Yeah, that's got a higher caffeine content than it actually has caffeine in it, as opposed to a lot of the herbal teas don't have any.
Right, but it's still, even with the black teas, they are still about half the caffeine level that a same size cup of coffee would be.
And now we're going to start talking about the little sandwiches that you get to go with your tea at a certain time.
Little cucumber sandwiches.
How do you come back on those?
And a little bit of avocado toast, please.
Hey, I was doing avocado toast before it was a thing.
Oh, yeah, you West Coasters always take credit for stuff that comes out as a
I
thing.
I was doing avocado toast when I lived in Texas, and I haven't lived in Texas in 20 years. I just like avocado.
Me too.
I like avocado too. My husband says that it looks and tastes like baby poo. So
First of all, when has he ever tasted baby poo?
that's what I asked him. That's why I started laughing so hard. Like, okay, at what point in time did you look down at a diaper and go, you know what?
Now, babies do have explosive experiences, so I mean, it's possible.
If you have your mouth open and we're holding the baby up in reverse.
I'm sorry.
Some close calls.
I have experienced some issues with some of my friends' kids where it's like you take the diaper off to change it, and it's like a fire hose.
There's a very simple method for doing that, and it's you take the diaper off, but you have the extra diaper in this other hand, and you just go.
See, okay, as a gay man, I have the best option at all. Don't have any.
Don't have any kids.
Well, true, but that doesn't mean that you don't have to take care of them. You already said that yourself.
Yes, I know, and I have had to do that. Yes.
Preemptive plan there.
It's usually more like, here, let me hold them from underneath their arms and hang them over the tub until I'm sure that the baby is empty.
The baby is empty.
Yep.
They need a little gauge on the side so you can see the meter go down. Okay, you're empty.
Oh, dude,
you are onto an idea there.
We're patenting that from this group just court record, okay? That will be our official patent. No, as a mom, that would be absolutely freaking nice to be able to like pull the clothes down a little bit and be able to see the gauge and be like, I could have had another 20 minutes on this one.
It's just like the battery level on your phone. It's like going, yeah, we're gonna wait.
We get onto some weird tangents, but I like it.
I enjoy when Scott's on here. We talk about way different stuff.
Oh boy.
Okay, so what's our topic again?
Topic is avoiding and identifying and
Oh,
avoiding
we
and
are
enduring
avoiding.
triggers. Yes, we are. We're having comedic conversation. We're keeping each other sober.
Hey, I'll admit getting hit in the face with baby poo would be a trigger for me.
Yeah.
Hopefully a trigger to take a shower.
Never gonna recover.
I don't know if I would ever recover from that.
I have stories of each one of my kids doing something insanely disgusting, and for the sake of their well-being, I will not go into any of them, but there are so many that I've already thought of that I'm like, man, if we weren't recording this, I'd just like tell you guys. Babies are an interesting thing, but clean is definitely not one of them.
Not one of them. No, not.
No. So that's another kind of that can segue into another interesting topic, and one that isn't discussed very often. But if you know, for any females that are watching this afterwards, or anybody who is going to have a baby or adopt whatnot, when you get ready for that, you have to make so many different changes in your life. So, like every time that I got pregnant, I had to quit drinking. I had to immediately quit smoking, had to quit caffeine, which try and do all three of those at one time. It's absolutely crazy.
It's true. Women are stronger than men.
Well, I'm not trying to say that. I'm trying to say that that's another aspect that I went ahead on being the female representative of the team. It is extremely difficult, and the only thing that got me through doing that all three times was it is okay for me to destroy my own body, but it is not okay for me to destroy another person's.
Wow.
And so envisioning the child already and going, I'm not going to do this.
Well, and that is probably one of the strongest examples that you can give. I know in my own life, yes, I still smoke, but like I won't smoke in my car when somebody's in the car with me, or if I happen to be outside with them, I make sure that I'm standing downwind so that's not blowing in their face.
It's called being a polite smoker, Scott. That's what a lot of people don't know how to do.
It's very interesting up here in Washington. There is a rule that you cannot have a lit cigarette within 25 feet of any door or window that opens. So you try to walk through downtown Seattle and find a place where you can light up, because you can't.
I just remember going to Seattle, and I smoked at the time, and so it was really awkward for me being there. Almost nobody smokes there. It's so rare that you find somebody. But then we went to Victoria in Canada, and man, that I had forgotten to buy cigarettes before I went up there, and this was like, say, 10 years ago. So prices of cigarettes have changed a lot, but when I went up there to buy a pack, it was like $13 US a pack.
Wow.
And then it had a really nasty looking infected lung on the front of it. So if you wanted to smoke, you had to look at the nasty infected lung to get your cigarette out, and it said underneath it,
Smoking kills. Yeah, they do that. They do that in Mexico as well, but the cigarettes are only like $3 to $4 a pack.
Don't give
Yeah,
me
so to
any ideas.
kind of bring us back a little bit, you know, I had a note here that addiction is considered a psychological illness, you know. So depending on what stage you are in your addiction, you need to acknowledge whether you need to seek further assistance with this psychological illness. You know, I see my psychologist once a month, my psychiatrist every few months, something like that. And then of course I have all these groups that I go to all the time that some are professional help and then some are just things like AA. But definitely realizing at what point you are in this recovery process and then seeking the appropriate amount of help to help guide you through this, as well as to build a better barrier against your triggers. You know, all of these things, it's like you're building up these walls around yourself that protect you from addiction. And at the top of it, you have those little parapets, the little slots that you can see through. And it's like you build these walls up and then it make sure that you're up there peeking out and looking out for these triggers, looking out for these things that are problems for your addiction. And then, you know, you'll be safe. You'll make your way through it. But it is a constant effort you have to be vigilant with it. You know, for me, I can forget about an addiction for a long period of time, like I never even did it. But then that's me not paying attention to my addiction. That's me not reminding myself that I need to be up there and looking out for those dangers. Otherwise, I'm going to be more susceptible whenever a trigger does happen.
Well, and I also want to make sure that we acknowledge, though, that depending on what you're utilizing, addiction becomes physical as well.
Yeah.
And so, you know, just because you're mentally strong enough doesn't necessarily mean you're physically strong enough to do it without a doctor's supervision.
Yep.
I've seen a
I'm
counselor
gonna
here in Arkansas that he specialized in substance abuse, and he was helpful while I saw him. He was so maybe that's something you can consider looking in. Maybe you've got a search application and you can look around your area and look at different counselors, some that might specialize in substance addiction or an eating disorder, food addiction, what your case may be. Wouldn't hurt to look and see if that's something you might be able to afford to do. Maybe seeing them once a month. They might have some ideas for how to help you as well.
Yeah. And you know, again, to reiterate, like recovery and triumph over addiction is like a daily effort. We have to continue to seek help. Never think that we're just completely over it. We've completely conquered any of this, because it's drugs and alcohol addiction in general. It's a very, very powerful thing. So maintaining that daily effort is paramount in this. Not getting too cocky.
I
You
will
know,
tell you guys that my dad, having been sober for 30, 40 almost years, he still calls himself an alcoholic.
yeah.
And
I'm gonna be in that group.
yeah, he doesn't have any issue with turning a drink down and saying, no, I used to be, or not I used to be, but he's like, I'm an alcoholic. I
Yeah.
don't. And he had this rule with us that he would pay for our dinner, but if we got any alcohol, he was not paying for it. So we were on our own for that one.
Good for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that'd be a trigger for me, buying other people drinks. Uh, yeah, can you go pick up a 15 pack while you're at the grocery store? No, I can't do that, man. We should-
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you can't practice buying. Somebody asks you to go get some tobacco for them or alcohol for them. You can't practice buying and not experience that to be a definite trigger for anybody dealing with substance abuse. So,
Well, and
I just dealt with that. You know how I was saying that my husband had a beer?
mhm.
Well, guess who went to the store and bought the beer? That's
Oh
me.
yeah.
But it was very different being in there on a run for him and not getting anything for myself, because that was showing me ultimate willpower of being there and going, nope, not buying it.
Yeah, that's
well,
good.
and
You're kind of using it as a moment to practice as well. You know, you're like, hey, I am strong enough to do this. I am being vigilant and not partaking in this, kind of reinstilling that strength.
Yeah, but I'm totally not buying other people drinks now.
Yeah.
well, and I think a lot of it would be maybe different for people depending on what you're getting for somebody else. Because if it's something I don't like, I don't think that would bother me nearly as much as if it was something that I did like.
Uh-huh.
Because I can buy somebody a 12 pack of Bud Light and be go, no thanks, I don't want any of it. Blech.
I can buy any beer and be like, blah.
Uh,
I have a thing with hops. They're just, but that's just me.
yeah, I can't buy none of that stuff. I mean, the hard liquor would be the closest to me feeling that way, because I look at hard liquor and I'm like, yeah, nah. But still, yeah, that's the lion's den for me. Where I know to avoid that one, be ever vigilant there. And then, you know, I have to acknowledge like that he's buying beer. You know, like I see that when say we're going camping the next day, right? We're going to the store to get our pre-camp supplies. My buddy's always getting that 12 pack or 12 packs of beer, and I'm having to think about that the whole time. You know, like it's triggering, but you know that's part of what we have to practice, that our strength over those triggers until we get better at them, until
So,
it becomes not a trigger.
so James, would you, and we can open up the discussion a little bit, but what about the non-alcoholic versions?
You know, it still implants that thought in me.
That was my thought as well. I mean,
Uh,
near beer or what's the name of that wine that's free, has no alcohol in it. It's basically just grape juice.
yeah. Yeah, as far as me drinking them,
Welch's.
um, you
Do
know,
what?
I said
as
it's
far as
called Welch's.
Welch's, yeah.
So,
Yeah, I could never do the near beer thing. I tried that before in the past, and it's like taking a swim in in an ocean and trying not to get wet. You know, it's like it's gonna happen. You know, it's gonna lead me to the other one.
Yeah, and that was kind of my thought, but I just wanted to get everybody's opinion on that.
Hmm. I think some people do it. They're cool. I don't think I like the taste of beer that much. I just think I like getting a buzz too much. Uh, doesn't matter how it happens. Because you know, like if I don't have beer was my preference, and I don't like scotch or any of those strong things. Like the thought of it makes me want to vomit. But if I'm in the throes of my alcoholism, I'll drink whatever it is. I'll drink that beer that's been sitting in the fridge for a week and it's open and flat. But I know it's got that sweet addiction in it. And yeah, so I go down that rabbit hole. Uh, I got to stay out of it as much as I can. You know?
that's really good that you can acknowledge that even with the alcohol-free beer, it's still not something that you want to take a risk with.
Yeah,
Mm.
it's
That's
still a potential trigger. I do think a lot of people use that, just like some of us, moved from full flavored cigarettes to ultra lights, thinking it would be better for us. And that's not necessarily the case.
Hmm.
I can say definitely since I quit smoking, I have found that I have more physical endurance, that I'm able to breathe way easier, and a cough that I had has gone away. And I wanted to make sure that I quit smoking before I ended up sounding like one of Marge Simpson's sisters with the
Yeah.
nightmares.
Well, we've passed that 45-minute mark.
Yeah, let's say bye to the internet. See you, YouTube.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Good luck on your journey. We love you. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.